Hi guys, MrRoflWaffles here. This list of tips will mean that you never fail the Totenreich Easter egg ever again. We're building on the knowledge of the Easter egg that you've already got from my no-nonsense guide, and we're cranking it up with secrets that are going to mean that you don't take damage at all, and you'll just generally have a much easier time. So, let's begin. First of all, your loadout. I actually really recommend the VST Akimbo with these attachments, and you can copy the build code for it. But if you haven't prestiged for all the attachments, I'd change the recommendation a little bit, and I'd use the XR3 Ion. And once again, my build code is on screen. For field upgrade, I'd start the game with either Wildfire or Toxic Growth. More on the augments for those later. We will switch to Frenzied Guard for the boss fight, but you can start with that as well if you really want to. Then for equipment, we're going to go decoys and then C4 or frags or just an explosive. Frags are going to be easiest to use in the boss fight, but obviously there's a lot of time between the start of the game and the boss, so spawn with what you're comfortable with. At the start of every match, never open the left side first, okay? Always go right. Run towards the Viking Hall, and near the trap, there's this box with an RCXD sitting on top of it. You're going to grab that, and then after repairing the first part of power, use the zipline to travel to the factory side of the map, call in your RCXD, let it pulse to explode the little barrier, and then drive it down the stairs. Stop it at the edge of the ramp and realign it to face slightly right because it will drift left, as you guys probably already know. And then hit the jump and get that step completed basically at the very beginning of your game. Now, if it falls in the water, you will have to get another RCXD. We'll talk more about extra free score streaks later. Next, you'll know to do the Easter egg, we are going to need to build the wonder weapon, and that means we're going to need to do the whole thing with the beans in the market and killing the Zersa. And getting the beans is very easy to do in those first 10 rounds of your game, but killing Zersa isn't mega easy at the lower rounds. But luckily, there's some really easy ways to make it straightforward. So first of all, Wildfire is fantastic. If you use the first major augment, it shoots fire projectiles as you shoot, which basically increases your DPS, and it's doubly good because Zersa is weak to napalm burst damage. And one of the craziest piece of text that you can use with this is that even if you run out of ammo in your guns, you can keep holding the trigger down and it will keep shooting wildfire balls, which means that you can actually use it with melee weapons as well, should you so desire. But if you don't want to do that option, you do have another choice here, which is to drop a toxic growth once Zersa is near you. And Zersa will basically just get stuck in the toxic growth, and it will give you plenty of time to finish it with a killing blow. The major I recommend here would be Urticant to continue slowing Zersa even after leaving the growth. Now also, just as a fun fact, what if you're a mile away from the beans when the special round begins, right? Like, is Zersa going to spawn over there? Is Zersa going to still spawn on you? Do you have to go to a certain place? The answer to this one is, so long as you've placed the beans before the start of this special round, Zersa will spawn in and chase you down. So you're chilling. You don't need to worry about your positioning for that one. Now, one of the biggest tips, honestly, for this Easter egg is being able to deal with frost more effectively. And thankfully, I've got a way for you here to disable it for the entire rest of your game. So I'll talk about that in a second. First, what are the conventional methods to deal with frost? Well, you've got the charged, stored wonder weapon while it's being held. You've got Wildfire, the field upgrade, and you've got the fire traps themselves. They'll create a little heat zone that keeps you warm and also gives you infinite wonder weapon charge while you're standing in the radius. But what about the permanent option? Well, during the wonder weapon quest, wait for Astrid to require frost zombie souls, so it's just after the constellation stuff. And instead of feeding Astrid any souls, what you're going to do is go to the flame trap near the constellation room entrance and interact with the trap to create a heat zone. Then stand in that trap and get 50 bullet weapon kills against frost zombies. Needs to be frost zombies specifically. Then if you head over to where the free RCXD was, there's another flame trap there. Use that trap as well, and that should get you up to 50 kills, but if not, then just run to a third trap and get up to 50 kills with bullet weapons on frost zombies. And the reason we're doing this during the Astrid step is just because we're going to get loads and loads of frost, so it makes life nice and easy to get the number of kills we need. But you also need regular zombie kills here, so you're going to activate the main switch of the traps when they come back online now, and you can just do this whenever, and you're going to keep using them until you've gotten up to around 250 zombie kills with the regular fire attack. And in my experience, experience, the best trap to use for this is the one by the lighthouse, and you stand in this corner and activate the trap, and zombies will die on all sides. And you'll know when you've done this successfully because the 250th zombie killed will drop the Icebane Helm, which you can equip immediately, and it can then be re-equipped in the Viking Hall on one of these tables as well if you swap it out later, and that will give you frost immunity. Next, the jump puzzle has caused some issues with some people. If you're too slow, you're engulfed by zombies. If you're too fast, you're kind of waiting for the next platforms to spawn in. So, in my opinion, the best way to do this is just throw a couple decoys. I mean, if you've got monkeys or Casimirs, obviously, fine, that's great. And you're at an early round, so you're going to get a special round, which is going to give you a max, which is going to replenish them. So, there's no real need to hold on to your Casimirs. So, feel free to use those, but in lieu of having them in your inventory, use your decoys. And I'd say you can run past or shoot the first spawn of zombies during the initial run towards the lighthouse. But after that, you're going to not want to stop moving. You just want to keep going. When you jump out of the lighthouse onto the platform, run up and jump against the lighthouse to skip to the next level. That's a little sort of speed tech. And one issue you may run into is that you're too quick and you have to wait for a platform to spawn. So just be mindful of that as you are progressing. Next, we've got to get that green fish step done, right? And you can't just find that anywhere. But one thing that I see some people messing up with this is to make sure you're not looking on the same round you get the wonder weapon, because it only spawns the round after. So you can grab the wonder weapon and then flip the round and then start looking for your green fish. But if that's not your issue and you're still just having trouble finding it, here's a map I made marking all the locations. So feel free to just use that to kind of zip around the map and figure out where it is. Now, once that's done, you've got to do the Ravager, obviously. I know some people have been having trouble with this as well. It's a little fiddly. So here's how it actually works. First, fish the green fish, as we said. Then the Ravager's going to spawn, and then the Ravager will respawn at the start of the next round. Now, if you don't know where it is at this stage, you can open your map and ping the boss icon roaming around, and that's going to help you track it down. Then, once you've pinged the Ravager, you know which one it is that you need to take out. You're going to do the steps sort of as normal, take out a third of its health. It'll go immune, it'll teleport away, but because you've pinged it, you'll know exactly where it's going, and so you can then just run over to it and do the next third, and then do the next third and get your uranium. Next, a quick thing to mention about fishing. We obviously want to get the green fish, but you shouldn't only fish when looking for the green fish. The loot that you can get from fishing is actually really good, and it can save you a lot of time and salvage during the Easter egg, and that might be the difference later between going into the boss fight on the round you're on or having to push a round or two to kind of farm stuff. So it's a worthwhile investment early in your game. So for instance, if you botched your free RCXD at the start of the match, you don't need to spend salvage buying another one necessarily. You can do, obviously. Or you can just fish, and you'll pretty frequently get another RCXD car. Similarly, for failing steps, if you're doing the Glock drop step and you fail to kill enough zombies, don't spend 2,000 salvage buying another Glock drop. Just fish one up. It's actually very common as an item, and that's a big amount of salvage to be able to save, so it's really worthwhile. And similar to that as well, if your friend used the free disciple injection in the church and now you're screwed trying to do that Easter egg step later, don't worry about it. Just fish for it. Now, as you're doing this, you're gonna end up getting a purple-eyed zombie spawning out of a boot when you fish at some stage. It's gonna happen to everyone, and sometimes it's just a purple zombie, but sometimes it's Old Cranker. Yeah, seriously. A named zombie with a helm on his head. And when you kill Old Cranker, he will drop the Golden Tide Helm, and that gives you a moderate chance to fish up power-ups and makes fishing a bit faster. So if you've already grabbed the Frost Helm, for example, then maybe a teammate comes over and grabs Old Cranker's hat. Next, I know a lot of people are struggling to get the flak shell step done on their first try. And to be fair, like I said in my Easter egg guide, you don't have to be correct to progress this step. You can just open all 4 of the crates, but you will obviously have to spend some time doing that. Now, to avoid any problems and to get it first try every time, there are 2 spawn locations for a note that tell you which container you need to open, and also tells you which of the 3 containers are the ones that are kind of booby-trapped. So the first spawn for the note is just here on the floor in the crane control room by the big ship, and the other is to the left of Tyr's foot entrance by this zombie corpse on the ground. So when you find it, interact with it, and you'll read a message that someone messed with the PZGR shells shipment. And there's a graphic made by Kingman and Aiden that I'm going to show you guys here while I kind of explain what's going on. So there are certain things that will never change. So if it says in the note the shells are gone and they now carry robot parts, then you need to open the box that says 10-9, where 10 is the Roman numeral, so it's written X9. If there's a chemical bomb inside the note, then open 4-3. If it says it's rigged to disperse gas, open the box that says 3-6. And if it wasn't tampered with, open 5-7. Once again, where that's a Roman numeral first, so that's V and then 7. Next, we've got the blinking lights step. I know people have been having a little bit of trouble with this. Some people say their lights blink only once, or sometimes just 0 blinks happen on one side. So what's going on there? Well, if you have 0 blinking happening on a light, just trial and error your code. That is going to be the best thing for you to first do. Just try some kind of input into your oscilloscope. So let's say the left one blinks 6 times, and for some reason you see 0 blinks on the right-hand side. You're going to go over to the scope, and you're going to put your 6 in on the left, and then you're just going to go through the dial on the right one by one. Put it on 1 for 2 seconds, then put it on 2 for 2 seconds, then put it on 3 for 2 seconds. And so long as you have the left number correct, the right number will land on the correct one eventually, and so you'll get your completion. I think the reason this happens is it's a bug with saving and quitting. I know there are other issues with save quit where you maybe enter one code, you save quit, and then the game is like, did you already put a code in or did you not? Or like, what's going on here? And a similar issue can happen if you're only seeing one sequence of numbers. So let's say the left one blinks 4 times and the right one blinks 6 times, but then they reset and they show the same sequence again instead of showing you 2 pairs. And this is a sign that the game thinks you've already put a series of codes in, so you just need to do your second pairing. So you're fine. Just put those numbers in and you'll be all set. Now, I know there are some very weird edge cases that do happen with this. So if you've got any other strange experiences that you've found solutions for, please drop them in the comments. And that just goes for this whole Easter egg. If there's any tips that you guys would like to add so that we can all get through this Easter egg more easily, please share them in the comments down below. That would be very much appreciated. Next, 2 quick things. First of all, any source of heat can burn ice off the rope when you're going up to the oscilloscope. That could be the wonder weapon or a Molotov or whatever fire is in your arsenal. And second, inputting the first code into the device will lock it from use. And I thought this was round locked originally, but it actually isn't. It just resets after 30 to 60 seconds, and that will then allow you to enter your next code just fine. After we're done with that, we're going to have the claw game step. Now, I gave a lot of explanation about this in my main quest Easter egg guide, and I think that it was a very clear explanation. But just to add a little bit of info here, I'm going to rattle through some stuff. If you take too long in the machine, zombies will start targeting you, so be wary of that if you're playing solo. Pay attention to the sounds of the zombies, and you'll then be able to tell if they're targeting you, so you won't die prematurely. You can also leave the machine and return to it to reset your zombie targeting timer, and that won't reset your puzzle, but just be wary that if you leave it way too long, then you'll have to come back and interact with it the next round. And also something I think a lot of people don't realize is trial and error is needed a little bit to be able to do this step. Like, you're going to interact with the board and you're going to learn from it in terms of what connections it makes and how much it adjusts your dial. So feel free to move your uranium around and see how the board responds to that. You don't just have to place it once and then leave it there forever. And my last tip for you here on this step, and I really recommend the main quest guide if you're still having trouble with it, is it's fine if you're placing those first 2 uranium canisters to overpower the machine. Like, let's say you place canister 1 and it gets a good amount of charge. You place canister 2 and it goes over the green zone. That's totally chill. You just want to avoid the situation where you place your 3rd one and it goes over the green. So feel free to experiment. Place those 2 down, see if it goes over, then understand, okay, that means if it's gone too far already with just 2 canisters, I probably need to place one of my canisters far away from all of the other connections so that it doesn't give me too much juice. And you can kind of make decisions accordingly based on that. Now, once you're done with the core machine, it's time to pick up the Atomcraft core. And while you can't sprint with this thing, one thing that you can do to save some time and make your life a little easier is to use the new field upgrade, Wildfire, because that's going to grant you increased movement speed. And you can then use that to get to spawn much quicker. And if you've got Oxidizer as an augment or Heat Surge, that will also make it even better because it will improve the duration and the movement speed buff. Now, once you're done with all that, before you go to boss, there is a crucial upgrade that I recommend that gives you and your teammates invincibility at any point during the boss fight. And the way this is going to work is you're going to put Shadow Rift on your weapon at the arsenal machine, and then you're going to go to Tears Foot, look outside the map at this part of the building, and there's a tiny gnome. Shoot it enough times that it will disappear into a purple cloud, and it has to be with the Shadow Rift weapon. Then go across the bridge to the church, and on this altar, you'll find another gnome. Shoot that, make it purple smoke. Get a 3rd gnome in this tricky kind of spot on top of the lighthouse. shoot it till it's purple smoke, and the final gnome is inside the claw machine room, seen from the catwalk just here. Once they're all purple smoke, go to the antique store and pick up the knee-high helm, but then do not crouch from this point forwards, because crouching will turn you into a gnome. And you have 30 total seconds of gnome timer available to you, which means we don't want to waste any early. We want to just save it for boss. So again, if another teammate's got the frost helm and another one's got old Cranker's helm, this is actually a good time to swap old Cranker's helm out, or if they're keeping that, then you can wear the gnome helmet at this stage, and then if there's a point during boss, which you always find really difficult, such as that final phase, you can go into gnome form and use that maybe while using a near-death experience or something to get your teammates up and to sort of force your way through that part of the fight. So let's talk boss fight. I'm going to tell you some things to bring in a sec, but first, some things to completely avoid. I know ray guns are cool, but they're not for this boss fight. The fact that the projectile just takes time to reach the boss means you're going to miss your crits a lot more. They're just not great, to be completely honest. And the other thing really to avoid is shotguns with pellets. They just don't register, so keep that in mind as well. Not the optimal choice here. Now, the one ray gun exception I'd say is if you're planning to use the other gun of yours the entire time, and that would be completely valid to do so long as you've got enough ammo in it, because it's quite an ammo-intensive fight. It might be nice for popping your equivalent exchange when you're downed. That's sort of the only reason I would justify it. Otherwise, specifically for boss damage, it's not the pick here. So what do you want? Well, I'd say any loadout weapon that you've kind of got your eye on from my recommendations at the start of the game, or something that's just got good range and it's gold rarity and fully papped, that's gonna work okay. For score streak, war machine or death machine. For equipment, frag grenade or any explosive, really. And in my experience, ammo mods don't affect the boss, so I really recommend light mend here because it's going to help with your survivability. I like using it with booster shot for the overheal and extra strength for increased heals. Now, if you don't have a ray gun in your second slot or you've still got space, I quite like brain rot with pheromone to distract zombies on my other gun. And then separate to that, for loadout stuff, Wisp Tea with healing augments is really solid and has saved my life multiple times actually in this fight. Stamina up with guns up to sprint and fire is very useful for damaging the boss, especially if you're using Akimbo SMGs. Double tap with double impact and double or nothing with my specific loadout is really good for extra damage, and Frenzied Guard with Frenzy Fire and Extension is nice for survivability and DPS. Next, this is a massive one. If you get downed and you've got no way to get yourself back up, that would normally be the end of your game. But if you're all out of revive options, there's a chance that you actually get a blessing power-up somewhere in the sort of center area, crawl over to it, and you'll be revived, and you can try, maybe unsuccessfully, but try to finish the fight. So we were talking about Helms earlier. Just a word of warning, actually, before we go any further. If you're using the Frost Helm, don't expect it to save you from all the boss damage during the boss fight. It's not going to do that. You might think, oh, well, it's all snowy, icy, frosty damage, so I should be fine. But it doesn't work that way. I think Treyarch knew that that would just trivialize the fight. So don't expect the Frost Helm to make you invulnerable, because it's not going to happen. Now, I know this might sound crazy, but the Glock drop in the boss fight will drop you score streaks. So if you forget to bring some, or you couldn't afford any, that could be an option, and you could get a death machine or a war machine from it. And this is crucial because the death machine is very good at dealing fast damage to the boss. The war machine is extra good though, but for a completely different reason. And it's the floating ice skulls of death, okay? They need explosive damage in their mouths to become disabled. And the war machine is fantastic for that because you can just spam them. Then you obviously get in the skull's face, spam your highest DPS weapon, and you should be able to kill these things in one rotation most of the time. Now, this is why I've also mentioned C4 and frags for the fight, because I'll use those for the mouths if I don't have a war machine. Now, obviously, you can use the wonder weapon for this, but it's just a little less accurate. There's a little bit of a delay in firing the thing, so I like some of these other methods. Now, also, don't overlook loot from the skulls. They drop ammo, armor, sometimes frags as well, and that's going to be essential for your success here. Next, it really doesn't hurt to just abuse save quit while doing solo bosses. So if you get downed, save and quit, and it'll give you your perks back on your reload, and you can restart the boss for free. But this is one of the hardest bosses to save quit because of the random damage that comes your way, whether it's from frost or the millions of projectiles. And that's why I want to give a shout out to my boy, the Gnome, once again. You can obviously take a load of damage, but then just go into gnome mode, reset your health to full, and then save quit. Now, the final phase of the fight is pretty techie, right? It shrinks the area, there's lots of projectiles, and keeping the gnome for that part of the fight is really nice. But having Frenzied Guard charged for this phase is probably the most important tool, actually, because you can pop it and then just pour damage into the boss with everything you have. And honestly, that is the best way to get through this stage. You don't want to just stand there and do tiny bits of chip damage and focus mainly on dodging. Instead, in my opinion, you kind of want to force your way through the phase. And so a Frenzied here is a really nice thing to be able to have. And you could even pop a Gobblegum to get yourself an extra charge of it. And finally, and this is a really important one, especially if you're solo, you will see the ammo box freeze over during the boss fight. And I really recommend you always just destroy that ice as soon as you see it, because you do not want to be caught with your pants down without any ammo, and then the box is frozen and you can't buy ammo and you die. And speaking of making your life easy for yourself, actually, I've put together a very efficient, optimized way to do the Easter egg in a brand new optimized guide instead of my regular no-nonsense guide. That's linked on screen now, so click through to that if you want the steps explained in the most efficient manner possible. I'll see you there.